The 10-year challenge trend showed how the world has changed over the past 10 years. This thought-provoking reflection invites us to think about how the world will evolve by 2050. Will cars fly? Will there be robot butlers? What will 2050 hold for us? Keep watching to find out. Neurotechnology to enable thought-based conversation. Mobile phones have become indispensable parts of our lives for day-to-day verbal and textual communication. However, not too far in the future, there would be technology that would enable communication using only our thoughts. What might have seemed like a science fiction technology worthy of movies has today been tested on primates and is on its way to being tested on humans soon. There may be a time when a metal language is developed for the disabled, from learning the senses extracted from electrodes placed in the brain, or synthetic speech is developed for the paralyzed. Perhaps one day it will be used for telepathic communication between humans or to drive a Tesla. 1/10 of the world's land is submerged by the sea, and the population will increase. Recently, a nearly accurate digital elevation model called Coastal DEM, which uses neural networks to reduce SRTM errors, has tripled previous estimates of global vulnerability to sea level rise and coastal flooding in new research conducted in 2019. 600 million people live in coastal areas, and the numbers are not encouraging. The new study estimates that several populated coastal cities such as Hong Kong, Alexandria, Mumbai, Bangkok or Shanghai will be underwater at high tide by 2050. This could mean that around 150 million people now live on land that will be below the high tide line by the middle of this century. While efforts to reduce emissions and control the harmful effects of climate change will need to be significantly stepped up, if ignored, huge swathes of land will be underwater within the next 30 years, and no drastic measures will be taken to stop runaway climate change. Many scientists estimate that the world's population will eventually exceed 9.8 billion people. Others believe that the population will not be able to reach that number on the big blue planet. Going to school will be a foreign concept. When was the last time you went to the library to find a book to learn something? Probably a few years or many years ago. The online education industry will grow at a rate of 40% per year and become a $325 billion industry by 2025. It adds greater flexibility for parents to look beyond the curriculum and school schedules, let alone have the freedom to choose the field of their choice. In 2019, there were 2.5 million homeschooled children in the kindergarten through 12 age range in the United States, a steady increase of 6 to 8% per year. While there are identified challenges that will not completely eliminate classroom education versus online education, such as problem solving and face-to-face discussion with peers, there are many platforms that allow for this virtually. And in the next 10 years, this could become the norm. Do you think this could be possible in the year 2050, or do you consider this a prediction? People going to Mars for vacation. Elon Musk has long said that SpaceX's primary goal since its founding in 2002 has been to help make humanity a multi-planetary species. In September 2019, he announced his plan for interplanetary travel along with his towering 118-meter Starship Mk-1, a prototype of SpaceX's massive reusable launch system at its South Texas launch site. The Starship is capable of many launches in a single day and can carry a 100-member crew to the Moon, Mars, or other destinations via space or Earth. The Starship will take Japanese billionaire Yushaku Maestraba and a few others on a trip to the Moon this decade. Meanwhile, NASA has also unveiled a campaign to lead an innovative and sustainable exploration program to demonstrate the capabilities required for human missions to Mars and other destinations. So while NASA may not be sponsoring a vacation to Mars, efforts are underway globally to make Mars transportation a success so that by 2050, a vacation to Mars can become a reality. Gig economy, the only way to work. Millennials don't want to limit their creative juices to just one or two fields. They would have at least 4 or 5 different careers in their lifetime, and they can all be at the same time. Flexible work, freelancing, will be a new normal. With more than 1 in 3 workers being freelancers today, and with the benefits of adapting to this workforce for both workers and employers, further adaptation to the gig economy will make it a way of life for workplaces of tomorrow. Do you think this can be possible by 2050? Or do you consider it a prediction? A common digital currency across the world. Commercial and monetary transactions over the internet are an old phenomenon, and electronic money is no longer a new concept as it was 10 years ago. With the advent of technology, the need for more systematic electronic money was established, giving birth to cryptocurrencies. It has taken the payment sector by storm for its commendable efficiency and transparency in enabling financial transactions through today's electronic and digital methods. Facebook has introduced its initiative in this space called Libra, which aims to be a simple global currency and financial infrastructure that empowers billions of people by having regulatory dependencies, financial inclusion, and respecting financial sensitivity, so that it can be adapted across the world. Further afield in the Middle East, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have joined forces to launch a common digital currency called ABLE, which is a step towards establishing a common method of financial settlement using blockchain and distributed ledgers. While a common global currency has been adopted as a concept, challenges such as regulations and financial privacy will remain obstacles to making this a reality by 2050, unless robust frameworks are put in place to address the challenges. Bespoke or personalized future generations. Today we are talking about advances in vitro fertilization. It is predicted that scientists will be able to use big data analysis to compare people's genetic sequence to their DNA information, how those genes are expressed throughout their lives, and be able to transform or customize genes before implanting them into embryos for fertilization. This is mentioned in detail in Hawking Darwin, a scientific study on the future of genetics and technology, written by Jamie Metz, a member of the World Health Organization's Advisory Committee on the Governance of Human Genome Editing. He believes that in 50 years, conceiving babies in the lab will be the normal way, and people will have many more options for implanting embryos, such as skipping genetic predispositions, such as heart disease and Alzheimer's, to personalize their future generations. This could cure many diseases that will occur throughout people, since the complete DNA sequence will be known, and it will be possible to determine whether said embryo will be able to suffer from cancer in the future. So parents will not have to worry about that, because future generations will be able to be personalized. However, there are strict ethical issues currently behind the geopolitical conflict over the regulation of genetic enhancement, and we are still far from this being accepted in society as a normal way of conceiving. Do you think this could be possible in 2050, or do you consider it a prediction? Average life expectancy could rise to over 100 years. No one wants to die early, and humans have been working since time immemorial to become immortal. With advances in healthcare and lifestyles and increased awareness of the benefits of personal well-being, life expectancy is experiencing a continuous upward trend. According to the WHO, the average global life expectancy increased by 5.5 years between 2000 and 2016 to 72 years. However, the American Geriatric Society warns that science does not yet have a cure for mortality. While medical expenses in the elderly will increase, life expectancy will continue to improve and their children may live longer. Renewable energy sources will be the only source of energy. It is an established fact that fossil fuels are on the verge of exhaustion within the next 50 years, and as the increased use of fossil fuels today has led to global warming, the German Environmental Advisory Council has committed to being 100% emissions-free by 2050 and only getting its energy from renewable energy sources. Similarly, Finland, Denmark, Sweden and a number of other European nations have joined in their effort to achieve a sustainable future. The International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, has published its report Global Energy Transformation Roadmap to 2050, which outlines sustained and comprehensive efforts to establish a sustainable future for the future. The report has very systematically segmented plans by country, sector, energy, infrastructure, transportation, industries, associated costs, and the cost benefits to carry out this transformation. The focus areas on how to carry out this transformation are energy efficiency and renewable energy, the two pillars on which this transformation is based. Autonomous, electric, and flying cars. Perhaps the most obvious of the predictions, this could become a reactive solution to the world's traffic problems. What the Jetsons imagined would be 2062 in the cartoons of the early 90s could become a reality before then. OEMs such as Renault, Toyota, and Boeing have already tested prototypes of cars, flying autonomous cars, and have come up with the most futuristic design concepts for these cars to optimize flight and transportation for the public. Uber has promised to launch autonomous flying taxis well before 2050 in its efforts to become the Amazon of transportation, while aiming for the commercial launch of flying taxis by 2023. Autonomous flying cars will be a thing of tomorrow, and major automakers around the world today have their teams busy with this vision. Do you think this could be possible by 2050, or do you consider it a prediction? Artificial intelligence. The elephant in the room here is the potential for something truly transformative to happen. An explosion of intelligence, for example, means AI that becomes effective enough to improve itself, becoming much better than humans at everything. This could either create peace and abundance for us all, or destroy the world. I don't like thinking about this. It's not fun. It also defeats the whole point of writing predictions, because such a radical event, whether good or bad, would render an incrementalist approach moot. This may be why many scientists predicted it, and a couple predicted it would not happen. Unfortunately, there is a significant chance of it happening in the next few decades. GPT-3 and soon GPT-4 text-based models are improving very rapidly, among other advances that I am far from fully aware of. Assuming there is no intelligence explosion, AI will still have an enormous impact on our daily lives. Creative work will be disrupted at the level of factory jobs today. In the arts, there will be a nascent dichotomy between AI-assisted productions and authentically human ones. AI art will generally be more competent at achieving some stated purpose, such as telling a heartbreaking love story, and will be used abundantly by major commercial studios. For example, in Hollywood, authentic human art will rarely match the technical quality of other kinds, but many people will see it as truer in some sense. There will be endless debates about which kind is better. Virtual and augmented reality will get better and more widespread by the year 2050. Eric Joel coined the term supersensory to describe the fusion of all entertainment media, games, television, movies, books, and VR and AR into a single hyper-stimulating network accessible to all. I think this is mostly correct, but I want to add an important nuance. The more virtual reality and augmented reality rise, the harder they will be to avoid, and the more they will become a sign of status. Although some believe that they will become affordable to everyone, we will have high-resolution simulations of Rome and Athens, but visiting the real Rome and Athens will be a sign of wealth, even more so than it is today. Although the cost of travel is likely to decrease over time, as one of the predictions for this year is that anyone will be able to have access to virtual reality, reality will become a symbol of status and wealth. In space, we alternate between circumspection and optimism. On the one hand, the last few decades have taught us that progress in space technology is slow and expensive. On the other hand, it was very fast in the 1950s and 1960s, and that is no reason why we should be less capable now than then. In fact, it is a question of motivation. During the space race, barriers to entry were absurdly high, but the United States and the Soviet Union were highly motivated to outdo each other. Today there is no such competition, but the barriers to entry are getting smaller. When SpaceX puts its first spacecraft into service in a couple of years, it will be much less expensive to send anything into space, from people to cargo to building materials. As this video argues, we may not be far from creating the equivalent of the Berlin airlift, which supplied West Berlin during the Cold War, but for lower Earth orbit. A major change in space technology would make the incremental predictive approach work poorly. In his post, Eric acknowledges that and consciously makes the not-so-conservative prediction that there will be a Martian colony by 2050. I agree, and add that there will also be a lunar colony, as well as a significant number of people staying in orbit at any given time. However, let us keep in mind that all of this will be new and undeveloped by then. After Columbus rediscovered America, it was several decades before there were impressive European cities in the New World. 27 years from now, our settlements on literal New Worlds will be small and not entirely profitable, but they will be growing. Only one of the 10 writers in the Strange Loop canon made a prediction about agriculture. He thinks we will power cities with vertical farming. It is interesting that none of the others even mentioned the topic. Food is at the center of the human experience, and yet it seems so mundane, at least in rich countries, that we pay very little attention to it. I predict this will still be true in 2050, but so will the current trend of developing steady improvements in the way we grow and prepare our food. The honey Chris apple, now widespread in grocery stores and considered by many to have a superior flavor to other cultivars, was first produced commercially in 1991. In the same decade, Dutch scientists discovered why Brussels sprouts were bitter, and Brussels sprouts taste better than ever. Since last year, we have been producing strawberries locally in the Quebec winter, thanks to investment in greenhouses. The food world of tomorrow will be full of small improvements in quality of life, like strawberries, and these improvements will be small enough that we don't notice them until we take them for granted. It also seems likely that we will have found meat and dairy substitutes good enough to fool most people. It is also likely that lab-grown meat will be commercially viable in the next few decades. As a result, we will no longer have to kill animals to follow an omnivorous diet. But of course we will continue to do so. Like everything nice that becomes unnecessary, eating real meat will become a status sign. The good news will be that factory farming, widely regarded as the worst part of agriculture, will have begun to decline. This is what will continue to happen. Big things are important, of course, but our civilization is good at subtle and gradual self-improvement. And that is important too. In 2050, we will be at the end of the decade that will have been the closest we have ever been to a golden age. It won't feel like that. There will be plenty to complain about, but unlikely disaster scenarios aside, it will be true. I, for one, look forward to it. Tell us what you expect to happen in the year 2050. What are your predictions for that year?